I'm about to show you exactly how I reduced my cortisol by 24% and raised my growth hormone by 34% in just 6 weeks. And I did it without medication, without expensive supplements, and without disrupting my resistance training or my full-body workout routine. At 35, constant deadlines and broken sleep pushed my cortisol to 31% above the normal average. And even though I understood how to build muscle and followed structured muscle-building programs, my recovery was falling apart. I was waking up foggy, losing strength between sessions, and watching my testosterone drift downward week after week. What finally forced me to take this seriously was a blood test showing cortisol dropping from 18.2 down to 13.8 micrograms per deciliter after 6 weeks of testing 4 specific methods. These are the exact protocols I used, the ones that finally allowed my training to feel productive again instead of draining. When I first started experimenting with cold exposure, I didn't expect it to influence my training as much as it did. I'd always thought of recovery was mostly about sleep and nutrition, especially when you're committed to resistance training or a structured full-body workout routine. But what surprised me was how quickly an ice bath session shifted both my mood and my hormones. 3 minutes at 11 degrees Celsius, taken 2 to 3 hours after training, created a clear drop in cortisol and a noticeable rise in growth hormone. One session alone wasn't dramatic, but over weeks, the cumulative effect became impossible to ignore. What struck me most was how it supported my ability to push harder in the gym the following day, especially when focusing on compound movements essential for muscle building and understanding how to build muscle efficiently without overtraining. Still, it wasn't a magic trick. If you do an ice bath immediately after heavy lifting, you risk blunting muscle protein synthesis, which means those sessions count against your long-term development. Allowing at least 48 hours between cold exposure sessions kept me in the sweet spot: a calmer nervous system, sharper focus, and better performance when I returned to the barbell. It was the first method that made me feel like I finally had control of my stress response instead of being dragged by it. The second method I tested took me in the opposite direction of the ice bath, yet somehow complemented it perfectly. I had always thought of the sauna as something you used casually at a gym, not a tool that could genuinely shift your hormone profile or improve the way you recover from resistance training. But when I committed to 20 minutes at 80 degrees Celsius 4 times per week, the results surprised me more than I expected. My body responded almost immediately with a sense of deeper relaxation, but the real impact came from consistency. Over several weeks, I noticed clearer mornings, steadier energy, and an almost meditative calm that carried into my full-body workout sessions. Heat exposure increases heat shock proteins, and these play a quiet but powerful role in cellular repair, which is invaluable when you're focused on muscle building or trying to refine how to build muscle efficiently without overtraining. At the same time, I began seeing improvements in testosterone, something I had struggled with as stress piled up. The sauna didn't solve every problem, but it reduced the internal noise. One thing I had to be careful with, though, was hydration. If your blood pressure runs higher than normal or you rush into the sauna without proper electrolytes, the session can feel more draining than restorative. But when done correctly, and especially when alternating with cold exposure, the contrast between heat and cold created a rhythm that reset my system in a way no supplement ever had. It became the moment each week where I could finally breathe again and feel my body sinking back into balance.
Improving my sleep turned out to be the turning point of this entire protocol. Up until then, I kept assuming my recovery issues were caused by training volume or the intensity of my resistance training sessions. But the truth was far simpler. My nights were broken, shallow, and far too short. When I finally committed to a proper sleep routine, everything else began falling into place. I started with magnesium glycinate at 400 milligrams before bed, adjusted my room temperature to 18 degrees Celsius, and used full blackout curtains so my brain wasn't fighting stray light all night. It didn't fix things instantly. In fact, the first week felt almost too quiet, like my body didn't know how to relax anymore. But somewhere between week 2 and 3, my deep sleep jumped by 41 minutes on average, and the morning cortisol readings followed the same trend, steadily dropping. That extra deep sleep time changed the way my training felt the next day. Instead of dragging myself through a full-body workout, I had the kind of clarity and strength that reminded me why I loved muscle building in the first place. Sleep gave me more drive during compound lifts and helped me refine how to build muscle more efficiently without adding unnecessary stress. What surprised me most was how subtle yet powerful the shift was. No dramatic hacks, no expensive tools, just consistent habits done night after night. And once my nervous system finally understood this was the new normal, everything from mood to hormone balance felt dramatically more stable. The final method I added was something I had always underestimated: true active recovery. For years, I believed that on rest days I should either do nothing or push myself again with some light resistance training, thinking it would somehow accelerate muscle building. But when my cortisol levels kept fluctuating, I realized I needed a different approach. Zone 1 cardio, 30 minutes at a heart rate of around 120 to 130 beats per minute, became that missing link. It was slow, almost boring at first, but that was exactly the point. This pace helped my body clear lactate 23% faster and kept my nervous system calm enough that I could return the next day ready for a proper full-body workout, instead of feeling drained before I even touched a barbell. I also learned how easy it is to slip out of Zone 1 and drift into something that feels productive but actually adds more stress than recovery. Staying disciplined, keeping the intensity low, and allowing my mind to wander made these sessions feel almost therapeutic. And surprisingly, this gentle rhythm improved how to build muscle more sustainably than forcing myself through poorly timed training sessions. Compared with complete rest, which often left me stiff and sluggish, active recovery gave my body a chance to reset without shutting down. It kept the momentum of my week moving forward and prepared me mentally for the heavier sessions to come.
When I finally stepped back and looked at the 6-week timeline, the most surprising part wasn't any single method on its own, it was how powerfully they worked together. The blood work checkpoints told a clearer story than anything I felt day to day. Week 2 showed the first dip in cortisol. Week 4 revealed improvements in mood and morning alertness. And by week 6, the numbers finally reflected the way my body felt. Cortisol down 24%, growth hormone up 34%, and a level of recovery I hadn't experienced since my 20s. What made the biggest difference was how these methods supported one another. Cold exposure calmed the spikes. Sauna sessions deepened relaxation. Sleep optimization stabilized everything overnight, and active recovery kept my system from accumulating stress between resistance training days. It all fed back into my strength sessions, making each full-body workout feel more intentional and giving me a clearer sense of how to build muscle without burning myself out. I also had to adjust certain pieces based on age recommendations, particularly for friends in their 40s and 50s who noticed even sharper benefits from longer sauna exposure and stricter sleep routines. But the core principle stayed the same. When your recovery improves, your training improves. And when your training improves, your life genuinely feels easier to carry. This protocol didn't just change my hormone profile, it changed the way I move through every week. Looking back, what surprised me most was how small, deliberate actions could shift something as stubborn as cortisol. None of these methods were extreme, none required abandoning my resistance training routine or the full-body workouts that keep me grounded, and none demanded some complicated understanding of how to build muscle. They worked because they were consistent, sustainable, and rooted in simple physiology. If you've been feeling the same signs I did, sluggish mornings, slow recovery, unpredictable stress, this protocol might be the reset your body has been trying to ask for. If you want me to break down each method step by step, share my full weekly training structure, or create a guide specifically for muscle building while keeping cortisol low, tell me in the comments. And if this video brought you clarity or motivation, subscribe and share it with someone who needs a fresh start. Your recovery is not a luxury. It's the foundation that makes everything else possible.